Good morning, everyone. So it's great to have my feet firmly planted on this side of the Atlantic once again, along with our 30 pilgrims. And as we were in Germany and in Switzerland, sometimes on the street corners you would pass, particularly in Salzburg, people playing instruments, playing a harp in one place and different things. And my father, who was a musician, always reminded us that any time that we encountered someone playing on the street corner, we should be generous to them and give them an offering and thank them for sharing the music with us. And I learned from Father Gregory, who is here with us as an associate and is a very talented musician, that this playing on the street corner is something that's called busking. It's called busking. And some people do it to earn extra money, and some do it to share their talent and are grateful for the reward that we might give them. But what about the ones who do not offer us any music when they seek out our generosity? What about the ones who are simply there as an uncomfortable reminder to me and to you about the poverty that exists in our midst, poverty that we don't endure because of our comfortable life? It could be more difficult for us to be generous to these people as we are to a musician busking on the street corner. The story Jesus offers us today is not a condemnation of wealth, but rather a condemnation of purposeful blindness. Sometimes we choose not to realize, not to see, not to be bothered with those who might need our attention. It's kind of a natural human reaction, I think, that's based in our desire for self-preservation. The desire for self-preservation can lead us to being insulated from the needs of those who are less fortunate, both those who are less fortunate by means or even in desire. The rich man had plenty of warnings offered to him by the prophets and the scriptures, but he chose to ignore those things that were taught him, or at best he allowed himself to become obscured by his daily practice and unable to see because of his self-indulgence. Certainly the story is presented to you and me to be a warning, but not like the warning that is involved when someone wags their finger at somebody. Oh, you better do this, or this is going to happen to you. Not that kind of warning. But a warning is simply to make us to do action, but really it's a warning to inspire us to adopt a heart that is full of mercy, that is willing to see, that is never blinded by our self-preservation. The last several weeks, I've been reflecting on the prayer of dedication for a church and an altar. The reason for this extended reflection by myself and the deacons and our visiting priests have been to prepare us to re-enter our church building this coming Thursday. We have been deprived of the place that is set aside for our worship that was consecrated in 1999, and during these past several months, perhaps we've felt the deprivation of that place. Yet, even as we have been deprived of being able to worship in our church building, we always knew that there would be an end to this kind of poverty, as it were. We would once again enjoy the riches of being able to gather around the altar of the Lord that was consecrated in our midst and for that purpose. But even as that prayer of dedication that we've been reflecting on calls down God's blessing on the building and its altar, it does so by reminding us that the blessing of God flows through our behavior, that we are first blessed in the waters of baptism that make an end of sin and a new beginning of goodness in us, so that the building can receive a blessing, not in some sort of magical fashion, but by our very presence as God's holy people who are blessed and exalted to be a sign of his presence in the world. To remind ourselves and others by that presence, the many Lazaruses at our door, to remind ourselves of their presence in the world as well. We should never lose sight of those who are in need of our good works, works that we do not do to earn God's favor, but works that we do in order to understand more fully God's infinite favor to us. I've always said and have experienced in my life, and many have, that my generosity, their generosity, always comes back and helps us to understand how generous God has been to us. And so when we're generous, we always receive a gift back. But if we're not generous, we never see that gift. We never really understand what God has done for us. If we fail in this, like the rich man in the gospel, it's clear that we have little hope. We are reminded today that we should never think that our faith is merely a matter of prayer and worship alone, or some kind of personalized relationship with Jesus, but it's a matter of prayer and worship that leads us to be Christ in the world in which we live. To our co-workers, to our family members, to our spouses, to our neighbors, and consequently to the world. As our church is dedicated to God's glory, so too must our lives be dedicated to God's glory as well. We do many good things here at St. Michael's, many ministries that are undertaken that should be held up, not to boast, but for us to gain strength and to do even more good things. It's not just our dollars that are needed, but our lives. That is our time as well. This Thursday we'll gather at 6:30 in the evening at the tower doors, the front door of our church. The doors that invite us into the everlasting mystery of God's love for us. A mystery not to be held tightly to ourselves, but one that is to be lived out as we share in the poverty of others by addressing their needs head on in practical ways. Thursday is a day of celebration and refreshment. Come, take some time on Thursday. Come and be refreshed, celebrate, and be nourished. Nourished to do God's good work, and never losing sight of the Lazarus outside our door. Please rise.